This is the Sports Source, presented by Junk Be Gone and Renewal by Anderson. Now, your host, John Pennington.
There, including my own, who will be watching. Appreciate everybody joining us. We've got a full show. We're going to talk a little bit of everything today, I think. And let's just get right into today's show then. First segment brought to you by our friends at Junk Be Gone. And you talk about family on this day, Mother's Day. This is a family-owned business. And in every way, a member of the family named the company. A member of the family drew the logo. Junk Be Gone not only provides a great service, I use them every year, but they're family-owned, they're locally operated. If you're doing spring cleaning, do what I do. Call Junk Be Gone. They either bring you the bin and you fill it up, or they'll send a team to your house and they'll help you load everything up right there. Junk Be Gone. Great company that I have used for many years. Easy and affordable. All right. I want to welcome in our panelists for the day. We have Josh Ward, we have Ryan Callahan, we have Vince Ferrara, and right down there we have Mike Strange. Thanks to everyone for being here on this Mother's Day. Tennessee added to its upcoming non-conference schedules football this week. They threw Troy into the mix, but let's start today's show by taking a look at all the teams on the docket for the next 5 years. I want to start today's show talking about scheduling a little bit. 2019, you see what they've got coming in here this year. Georgia State, BYU, Chattanooga, UAB. Exciting. BYU is new, but there are, in years past at Tennessee, BYU would have been your B-level game, and you still would have had an A-level game. So no Power 5, I should say, no Power 5 teams on that 2019 schedule. 2020, they go to Oklahoma, but the other teams are Charlotte, Furman, and Troy. In 2021, it's Bowling Green, and your big game is Pittsburgh.
Steelers are coming to town? That's pretty big.
Yeah, that is good. Ben Roethlisberger may still be playing. They don't know who the third slot's going to be yet, but South Alabama is next. And then the following year, Ball State, you go to Pittsburgh. Army, I'll give that one a – that's an unusual foe, so a little bit of a thumbs up there. And then a question mark, and then you're at BYU in 2023, and the rest of that schedule isn't filled out. So let's compare that to the last 10 years, all right? You have 3 Power 5 opponents coming up in the next 5 seasons, 3. You've had 9 of the last 10 years. You basically played one every year. UCLA, Oregon, NC State, which is one of those neutral site games, at Oregon, at Oklahoma back here, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, and West Virginia, all in neutral site made-for-TV games. Simple question, Oklahoma, Pitt, at Pitt, and then you saw all those other block games we kind of threw out there. Is that going to sell season tickets? I mean, we saw the report came out last year that said Tennessee's basically, in terms of actual butts in seats, it's about 75,000 a game was the metric used by the list that was put out. Now, there's 8,000 different ways to do it, but about 75,000. It's a lot of empty seats. Now, you haven't been winning, I get that, but if you're trying to draw fans, is that the non-conference schedule to do it? Do you like this scheduling, or do you think that's not going to draw people in?
Well, it's definitely not going to do it, I don't think. I don't think fans are going to look at the schedule of the non-conference slate and say, you know what, I've got to get to Neyland Stadium to see BYU or Pittsburgh. Now, when Florida and Alabama are both on the schedule, that's very enticing. But I think it's going to be about Jeremy Pruitt and the future of the program and believing in what they're going to be. That's what you sell to fans, as opposed to, hey, come see all these opponents that Tennessee will play.
And I'll say this, I think that's what's more likely to sell it in most cases. I think very few times do you see that the non-conference schedule is what sells someone on season tickets. Oklahoma would be an exception. You know, one of those
Oregon
really
coming in here, though.
Maybe Oregon. Even then, I would be a little skeptical that Oregon was going to tempt you to buy tickets more than the SEC schedule. I think the Florida and Alabama thing's a much bigger deal than the non-conference game. So I think when you look at it that way, not a big deal. But yeah, Josh is right. This schedule not going to sell tickets, but I don't think that's necessarily what they're prioritizing with this, which we'll talk about later.
We'll get into that one. Yeah. What do you guys think? Is this going to make people get off their couches?
No, actually, oddly enough, I think it might have more of an impact in the home and home for fans to travel to those away games like Oklahoma, because especially if it's a new venue. In Oklahoma, they've been to there before, but it was a great experience. With so many of these opponents being the same for a lot of other teams in the SEC, you want a new experience for fans. So I don't think it really drastically changes anything for the home games, but it maybe gives you a better road game in those home and home.
Oh, I think everybody's already buying up their tickets to get to Provo.
Well, maybe not that one. but
Actually,
Oklahoma,
that's a unique, different
Yeah.
experience. I'm just joking about Provo. Mike, your thoughts on the scheduling there?
If they want to put more butts in the seats, the SEC should play 9 games instead of 8. You get another conference game in there, and people are going to go watch that. Now, I know that's not going to happen.
Right.
But, we put down some of these teams like Troy, South Alabama. Last time those teams came to Neyland Stadium, it was a pretty darn good game.
Oh, yeah, you had to have a record-setting offensive day to
Yeah.
beat Troy a few years ago.
That
Yeah, so
pattern is the way the whole SEC has been doing it, where it's one marquee
Yep.
game, 2 group of 5, and 1 FCS. Georgia actually looks like they're starting to go a different direction, where they're going with 3 Power 5 conference teams. They have 9 Power 5 conference opponents already set up in the coming years.
And Florida has 2 this year. I mean, they've got 2 FCS and 2 Power 5, I think. And they got Florida State every year, but they've added Miami this year in Orlando in a neutral site game there. When you look at this in terms of fans getting out, Evan Woodbury, who used to write here for the Knoxville News Sentinel, had a good piece this weekend. What was that, Mike? Is that who's he writing for now?
MLive.com, I think.
He's covering the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah.
And he wrote a good piece about he went to a game as a fan rather than as a media muckety-muck, sat among the fans. And he was amazed that that as many fans go to games as they do.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty good piece. You ought to look it up. Evan Woodbury, if you just do a Google search on his latest piece, you'll find it. But I do think, again, when I was younger, Tennessee played 6 conference games, 7 conference games, so you had more non-conference opponents. They spread it out. They played bigger names. You had bigger names coming in. Notre Dame, UCLA, every year it was somebody. I just wonder, as it stands, is Tennessee lucky just to have the people they've got going over there? Because I got to say, and again, we're talking Tennessee, and we can talk about, well, Florida does the same thing. Yeah, and if I were in Gainesville, I'd be talking about Florida. But I'm in Knoxville, and I look at it and I think it's kind of lame because I don't think people want to spend their money on Furman, Troy, Georgia State, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know anybody that's jumping up and down over Pittsburgh.
No, add a ninth. Like I said, I'll beat
Yeah.
the drum. Add a 9th game. Get Texas A&M in here before 2023. So.
I agree with that. I think adding to the conference makes sense. We've actually discussed that on the show years ago, every year, I think, since they expanded the league. I think Mike's right. You'd be better off with a 9th conference game rather than if you could put in another conference game, any conference game, over Georgia State, you'd have more people attending that game.
No doubt, and it's also why you're having schools, Florida included. Florida's had some wolf schedules at home where they're talking about lowering stadium capacity, and that's going to be a conversation not just in Gainesville, but around the country, including in Knoxville.
Well, they'll move the black curtain from Thompson Bowling.
Well, what's happening is fans aren't traveling as much anymore, especially within the SEC, because you get the same teams that you're seeing in conference, and it takes you 10, 12, 20 years to see some other teams in the league. So Kentucky isn't going to Florida, for example, and so that's why I think they're willing to shrink the attendance and I think it would be great to enhance experience too.
Yeah, and I'm with Mike. I think a 9-game SEC schedule is what maybe eventually down the road we're going to get to and would be better for everybody. But I think what we're seeing is the SEC TV money is such a big deal that the drop-in ticket revenue you get from maybe not playing that one big Power 5 opponent isn't worth the difficulty of the schedule. So you just say, you know what, we'll take the TV money, and if there's a lower capacity or lower attendance for that game, so be it.
All right, we'll talk about the level of the schedule, the difficulty of schedule next. I'm going to continue talking about this scheduling thing. A little bit later on, we're also going to talk about does University of Tennessee now have a new all-time villain? We'll explain that. Why is Jeremy Pruitt ranked ahead of Derek Mason after Derek Mason beat him head-to-head this year? That came out in a national list this week. Lots of stuff to come on the Sports Source. Come on back the next segment.